Well, hello, and thank you for joining this session of Dynamics 365 Business Central. Today's session is on warehouse management. So within warehouse management, we're going to cover what are locations, and locations not meaning bin locations, but meaning warehouses and the way they're set up. I'm going to talk about the different types of bins that you can configure and what they do. We're going to talk about directed picking and directed put away, which is really the power of the warehouse management system. We're going to talk about inventory movements. We're going to talk about automated data capture solutions, which is radio frequency handheld devices replacing paper in the warehouse. So let's start with the location. Locations are for warehouses. They are not anything that's called a location in Business Central is a warehouse code. Think of it as a plant. Think of it as a facility. However, you could create more than one location within a location. For example, if your process requires quarantine or quality inspection prior to making product shippable, A stock, B stock, hold, service, even though they're all within one warehouse, to restrict the ability to ship from locations, sometimes we'll create a virtual location or an actual physical area in the warehouse. The warehouse management rules are by location. We're bins and shelf and bin. So on an item card, we have the ability, and let's go into Business Central and take a look. As I log in here to Business Central, we'll start by just looking at an item card. And basically, on an item or on a stock keeping unit card, we'll bring up our item list. We'll just bring up any item. So you'll notice that on the item 1001, the touring bicycle, we have a shelf number field. We also have a shelf number on the stock keeping unit, which is a combination of an item and a warehouse. This is rudimentary, I wouldn't say warehouse management, but you can pick and send someone to this shelf. This is the stock location. You could also put, F5 is the main, and then overstock, and put in the overstock location that you might have the bulk or you have one bike up front in the showroom, and then you have the rest of them out in the warehouse somewhere. If we take a look at a location card, that's where we set up all of our warehouse rules. And on the warehouses, if I look, for example, at the blue warehouse, and we manage that warehouse, we can see that you've got some general information, address and contact info for that warehouse, if I expand that section. But if we take a look at the warehouse tab, this fast tab indicates the functions that we can control by location. Require receiving. That requires a warehouse receipt to be processed. Otherwise, you can just post the receiver right against the purchase order. But a receive is a separate document that we have to create. A shipment, do we require that? Do we require put away? Meaning that a dedicated warehouse activity called a put away will need to be handled in order to put the product into the warehouse. Do we use a put away worksheet where we can do multiple put aways? This is useful if we've got a whole bunch of things coming into receiving and we want to say, let's create a put away worksheet and get a large group of items, maybe a large number of receipts. Do we require picking, which is a dedicated warehouse pick? Do we pick according to first expired, first out? For inventory stock rotation, forgetting about velocity and bin ranking of how to efficiently move product through the warehouse, pick them first to expire and get that shipped out. That requires that you're using strict expiration posting and that you've got configured on your items lot number control or serial number control. Is bin location mandatory? Do I do directed put away and directed pick? So requiring put away or requiring picking doesn't necessarily direct you to a specific bin location. It allows the users to manually record where did they receive and put something, or where did they pick it from. Directed will then intelligently tell me where to go. And then use ADCS, is use the automatic data capture systems that a warehouse employee will use, a radio frequency handheld device. And there are a bunch of other features. The only other one we're going to discuss now is using cross-docking. And cross-docking is if you have something you've received that you're going to put away in the warehouse stock location, but it's needed to ship right now on a released sales order, the system will flag a quantity as cross-dock and tell me, all right, I received 100 units, put 98 of them away, but the 2 that are needed to ship, bring them right to the shipping bin. That's called cross-docking. And real bins exist within a location. So when we create a warehouse, if I look at, let's look at the white warehouse location. And if I manage that warehouse, you'll see that in this warehouse, we have requiring of receiving, shipping, put away. We're requiring picks. We're requiring bin locations. We're doing directed pick and put away. And we're using handheld radio frequency devices. We can also look at the zones that are created in that location. There's an adjustment zone that's virtual. There's a storage zone where I put away bulk product, cross-dock, picking, production, quality assurance, receiving, shipping, and staging. And some of those zones might require special equipment. You'll notice there's a ranking, and the system uses this to determine which zone to use first. It also has which is the cross-dock bin. And if we look at the bin locations that exist within those zones, we can see each bin location. The system will flag if that is empty, and the system will also flag if that's a dedicated bin for a precise product. And each individual bin location, we have the ability to go through and control the parameters associated with that bin. Unlike the static shelf or bin on an item card. The bin types that we can have are receiving, where I can put product when I receive it in, before I put it away. Shipping is the bin type that I can ship from, and it's where I bring things when I pick. I pick from a pick or put away location, and then I bring it and put it into a shipping location so that I can then process the shipment. It's basically bringing it to your shipping area or your shipping station or shipping line. Then there's put away, pick, and then there's no type, which can be used for a variety of choices. Let's just take a look at the bin types in the system. And the bin type list in this native system, this is the way Cronus is configured. You'll notice these 4 parameters. And the check mark of these parameters drives what capabilities you have in a specific bin. So if it's a pick bin, you can only pick from it. If it's a put away, you can only put stuff there, and it will be directed to do that. If it's a put and pick, I can pick and put into the same bin. You'll notice this one's blank. It's QC, which allows me to do a variety of functions. It just doesn't have a type. It won't be driven to pick from. You'll have to do movements to move product in and out of QC. The receiving type, that's where the receipts will go automatically, and that's where the shipping bins will exist. And you can create an additional number of these based on your own configuration and implementation of the system. So directed pick and put away is rules-based. It uses the put away template to determine where to put product, and how then, based on where product is, that's how it directs our pick. Let's take a look at the put away template. And put away templates, and there's a couple here. There's a standard and a variable. These are just examples. But if we take a look at this template, you'll see that what the system does is it goes through one row at a time. So when it's determining where to put product, it says, all right, find a fixed bin. So that's a bin that's got this item dedicated already. That's a float. This is not checked. That's a floating bin. That would be a bin that's available for any product. Where the same item exists, that is in the same unit of measure, that has less than the minimum quantity. So if that exists in your warehouse, you're receiving a bunch of product, and let's say that bin is configured where you can have 100 pieces of item A, and there's 90 in there, and you receive 10 more. All right, is there a bin that's dedicated to item A in the same unit of measure? So it's pieces, it's eaches, it's boxes, it's pallets. That's less than the minimum quantity. So for a forward picking bin, we want to maintain a certain quantity on hand, and that will be handled by a replenishment from a movement worksheet. So your really hot moving items, you can create some bin locations right by the picking and shipping area to make things more efficient if you configure minimums. You can also, of course, configure maximums on a bin so that the system will not overload a bin location. So then if this does not exist, we go to our next option, which is a fixed bin, the same item, same unit of measure, that doesn't have a minimum quantity configuration. So if that exists and there's capacity in that bin, use it. If that doesn't exist, find a floating bin, so a non-dedicated or fixed bin that has the same item in the same unit of measure. So it's not dedicated, but you've got some there. Let's put the product into that bin. If that doesn't exist, find a floating bin that has the same item in any unit of measure and go ahead and put it with that so the items stay together. If that doesn't exist, find a floating bin that's empty and make a new one. So now you'll have a new bin with that item in it if more product arrives. If that doesn't exist, find a floating bin that is not marked in any other way. It's an overstock area, basically, or just a general area. It might be on the floor, just a certain location. And you can configure as many of these templates, but this is the logic stream that the system uses when determining how to put product away. There is the ability to do directed picking, and there's the ability, if you're using item tracking, as I had described on the location card, first expired, first out. When you generate a pick, the system can do those and sort them by bin location, by an assigned user, by a specific zone, by a specific bin, so that you can effectively do a wave pick where you're picking multiple orders at once and you have employees that only live in one or two aisles, so that you will eliminate any deadheading where people are, driving a forklift in the wrong direction and, conflicting to minimize traffic. And then they bring everything over to the shipping area where then product will be shipped. Movements are used to replenish bins, to move inventory, to record adjustments. And a type of movement can also be recorded as a warehouse physical, because if you think you have product in the warehouse and you process a count and you don't find it, it records the adjustments. Automated data capture systems utilize devices, radio frequency handhelds, to eliminate the paper that is utilized in the warehouse processes of picking, of put away, of physical inventory, and of movements. The mini forms, let's take a look at those. So the mini forms can be user defined. And the mini forms these are the standard ones that are created in the demonstration company. So there's a login mini form, a log off, the main menu. And if I look at the main menu, you'll see the functions: pick, put away, movements, physical inventory, log off. Pretty simple. And you'll notice that these menu options that would appear on a handheld radio frequency device go ahead and establish other mini forms when you choose those. So what are those functions? And if I say, let's look at what is the pick list. And if I look at that mini form has actually fields that are coming up. It's bringing up the type it's bringing up the number of that pick, the number of lines to be picked, and a footer, which is a function to go ahead and choose that record. And you can control these mini forms and the functionality that exists within them by just working through your implementation. But copying these over from Cronus will give you all the basic functions to do picks, to do putaways, movements, physical inventory adjustments. And how they are displayed are based on your hardware. So the hardware requirement to use a device with native Business Central ADCS is any radio frequency handheld device that's a wearable or hand-holdable scanner that has VT100 emulation. The other requirement is that it must have function keys, because the key to register documents is programmed natively as the F3 key. So you need to have VT100 emulation, and you need to have a function key. So let's go through and do a demonstration. What I'm going to do to demonstrate the flow of warehousing through the product is I'm going to create and receive a purchase order. I'm going to put the product away in the warehouse. I'm going to look for that in my warehouse and say, where did I put it? Then I'm going to create and release a sales order and create a pick that will direct me to pick that product I received from that specific location. And then I'm going to go ahead and ship and invoice the product out. So let's go ahead and we'll create a new purchase order. And I'm creating a PO from Coolwood Technologies. And I'm not going to put in the vendor invoice number yet. I'm just creating a PO at this time. And on my items here, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to actually maximize this lines form so that I can see more information. And they happen to want the Berlin guest chair I want to purchase. I'm going to buy some of those to put them into stock, and I'm bringing them into my white warehouse. And the white warehouse has warehousing rules enabled. And we'll buy 10 of these. So we'll go back and I'll come back out of my lines mode, and I can see the total on this order. And now we're going to go through and I'm going to go to warehouse and I'm going to create the warehouse receiver. So the purchase order, actually, let's release the PO. And now I'm going to go through and time passes, the purchase order was sent out, the product arrives. And I get paperwork saying, hey, this just hit the loading dock. So we'll go ahead and create the warehouse receipt. And the system goes through and creates the warehouse receipt document, which is now up. Receiver 6. And the receiving document has the line items that were on that purchase order and the quantity to receive, which I can verify against my paperwork. And yes, that looks correct. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to process and I'm going to fill the quantity to receive. It already is set. And now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to post the receipt. And when I post that receipt, it's going to create the put away activity. So the goods have now been received into my warehouse and they're sitting in a receiving bin. So the put away activity has been created. So let's go ahead and let's look at that put away. So out in the warehouse on the handheld device, the put away is displayed on someone's list on their handheld device, and it's put away activity number 4. And if I call that up, you'll notice that the system has a take and a place function. So it's directing the user to go ahead and find these 1936S Berlin chairs and take them from the receiving zone in the receiving position that the system used for putting this, because there's multiple bins in receiving, slots where pallets can be stored or aisles. This could be a loading dock door. The receiving zone W-08-0001 and put them into this bin code, W-04-0010. And I can go ahead and choose a new bin if I want to, but the system is directing me that that's where these belong. So the user will go through and scan the barcode on the product or scan the barcode on the bin location to record and register the quantity that they've handled for the pick as they pick it from receiving. And then when they place it into the bin, they'll scan the bin that the product is going into. I'm going to go ahead and register the put away. And registering the put away, which would be hitting F3 on their handheld device after they've scanned the barcode, will go through and handle that movement of inventory. So if we go ahead and we look at the item, and we'll go ahead and search for that Berlin guest chair in yellow. And if I navigate and I say warehouse bin contents, it's now showing that I have 10 pieces in the white location or white warehouse sitting in that bin location. So that effectively the receipt is done. If we go back and take a look at the purchase order, for those 10 Berlin guest chairs, I can see that if this is now updated as quantity received and ready to be invoiced, so that when it comes time for accounting to do the three-way match, we know that that receipt has been processed and it's been received in, the warehouse has put it away. So now let's go through and we'll create a sales order. And I'll hit the tab or enter key, and we're going to say that the Canon group wants to buy 2 of those. We'll come down to my lines, and they want to buy the Berlin guest chair in yellow from the white warehouse, and they want 2 of them. And we'll go ahead and we'll release that order. And now we'll go through and we will create a warehouse shipment document. There is an alternative method where you can just create a pick per sales order, which I can create a pick. I chose, in this case, to create the warehouse shipment. And a warehouse shipment is useful because it can create multiple picks from the shipment. Maybe this order had a whole bunch of different line items from different zones, and I want multiple picks to be created for different users or employees. But in this simplistic presentation, we're just going to go ahead and create the warehouse shipment. And from this shipment, you'll see that I don't have a quantity to ship yet because I haven't done any picking. And we have to go through the process of going through and creating the pick. And when I create the pick document, I can assign it to a specific user. I can sort based on the item, the document, the shelf, or the bin. So I can filter this and just say, these are just for this zone I'm going to create, and now sort them by bin location so that the pick can be sequenced where the person can walk effectively or drive a pallet jack or a forklift down that aisle. And we'll go ahead and we can also filter by action type, because the action is there's going to be a take and a place. So you might want all of the takes in first and then all the places where they put the product into the shipping area. So as they walk down the aisle, it's more effective. I'm not going to set any sorting method. Break bulk is utilized if we have to pick this from a pallet and take some pieces away. And we can automate the break bulk and pick the pallet and then put away the other inventory, perhaps even into forward picking areas, but breaking down and changing the units of measure. And we'll go ahead and I'll push OK. And it creates pick activity number 4. So when we go ahead and we go to the pick activity it's pick activity 4, and this would come up on the handheld device for a user. If it's assigned to that user, it'll come right up on that person's handheld. If we're not using handheld devices, there is paper for reporting that is created throughout the entire area or system where it's going to go ahead and tell me, here's my pick list. Go ahead to bin location, pick W040010, and take 2 pieces, and they can mark down, okay, I got those 2, and then place them in the shipping area on shipping line 001. And we can do this all on paper, but the handheld device eliminates the need for any of this paper. So we'll go ahead and I have to make sure that I set the quantity to handle, and the quantity to handle is not set right now. So I can put this in. We handled 1 piece or 2 pieces, or we changed the bin. Maybe we picked it somewhere else that we found in the warehouse. And if everything is well, we'll now register the pick. And when I register the pick document, if we go back to the warehouse shipment, the warehouse shipment will show me, if we bring up that last shipment, for those 2 Berlin guest chairs in yellow, I can see that it has been completely picked. So the document status has been updated. The 2 pieces are picked. They're sitting on my shipping line, and we're ready to go ahead, and I can post. And when I post that shipment, I can ship, or I can process the shipment and the invoice all at once. And we'll go ahead and do that, and it's processed the shipment, and that is no longer in my inventory, and the warehouse shipment has been closed. So I hope you found this informative, and I look forward to showing you more about Business Central. Thank you, and have a great day.